Acting funny. Okay. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I know that people are tired and it was a busy weekend. I am super excited to see so many faces on here tonight. And I am thrilled to have Rachel Neels be talking to us tonight about the power of your story. And Rachel is a diamond coach. Rachel, have you been a coach for about a year now?
Was it a year this summer? In September, August.
Okay. Yeah. And she's a diamond coach. She lives in the Twin Cities area. I can't remember exactly which burb.
I'm in Cottage Grove.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And she is mama to 2 kiddos and a couple dogs, big fluffy dogs, and wife and busy fitness instructor and Beachbody coach extraordinaire. And she's just one of the most authentic, down-to-earth, genuine people I know. And she's very good at leveraging the power of her story and being really authentic and vulnerable and true to who she is on social media and in person. She just has a heart of gold. So I'm super excited to have her share with us tonight. So, Rachel, I'll turn it over to you, but she's just amazing. She hits Success Club out of the park every month and has an amazing team of women that she leads with so much heart. So I can't wait to hear what she has to share with us today.
Thank you so much for the nice introduction. And, you know, I actually, I have quite a bit to cover, so I'm going to try to go through it fast because I know we're all tired. I'm exhausted after Thanksgiving. And I'm sure all of you are too. So does everybody have a pen and paper handy? Okay. So there's going to be a few things that we're going to be writing down and jotting down throughout. And the first thing I want you to write down is this. It's a simple quote. I love quotes. And this one is a good one. The worst story is the one that's never told. So write that down. So I'm not going to go into my story. I've got lots of stories. You all have lots and lots of stories. And I remember when I first started out as a coach, I remembered thinking, oh, I don't have that big weight loss story like it seems like, you know, a lot of folks had. And I didn't feel like I felt like I kind of struggled with that initially. And I look back on when I first started my Journey Fitness page, which was actually before I started with Beachbody. And I truly was trying to create this perfect image of myself. I didn't want people to know that I was a slob. Bridget, you know that. You've been in my house. I didn't want people to know that I sometimes go 7 days without washing my hair. I didn't want people to know that sometimes I eat, you know, frozen pizzas. I thought that I had to create this illusion that everything was perfect all the time. And I looked back actually at the beginning of my, you know, my Facebook journey with my like page, Journey Fitness. And I noticed I was just really kind of just talking to nobody because nobody was really responding to what I was putting out there. And I get it now because I wasn't relatable at all. I was putting out like this image, this sugar-coated image of what I thought people wanted to hear. And truth be told, it's because I was afraid. And, you know, any of you who have kind of followed my journey, I have gone through, I went through some depression after the birth of my second child. And through that, sorry, Gus, I learned a lot about myself. One of those things was that, Gus, call Gus, please. One of those things that I learned about myself was that I have some perfectionistic tendencies. And so that doesn't mean that my house is perfect all the time and that I'm always put together. But what it means is that I wanted to give that illusion. And that really, really surprised me. And so when I started with Beachbody, and I kept hearing from folks that you need to share your story, you need to be authentic, it scared me. And raise your hand if it feels a little bit scary to have to be authentically you and share some things that maybe aren't perfect. And so if you're raising your hand, I can relate to you because that's how I felt. And I read a book that changed my life. If you're not doing personal development, you need to be, you know that. And the book that changed my life was called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. And it really made me realize that, you know what, these imperfections in our life are what make us who we are and what make us authentically us and what set us apart from everybody else. And so reading that book, you guys, I was writing down stuff, I was underlining stuff, and I want to go back and read it again because I learned so much about myself. And when I finished reading that book, I realized, you know what, I've got to go. I've got to be able to put myself out there. And it made me feel really uncomfortable. My heart rate raised, my cheeks got flushed. I felt that pit in my stomach, that, like almost sick feeling of like having to share things that made me look less than perfect, right? And what I found is that once I started putting those things out there, you guys, everything changed. Everything changed for me. I would get private messages from people saying, oh my gosh, you are so relatable. It's so refreshing to hear that you're not, that you don't eat organic all the time and that you're not always eating kale and quinoa and that you miss workouts and you argue with your kids. And so that actually like rejuvenated me a little bit and actually lit a fire under me to like, okay, I need to keep this going. People are really, 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 really responding to that. So the other piece of it for me, I don't know if any of you guys have read, there's been a lot of articles out talking about the negative effects of social media, which there's many, but one of those is that it's giving people a complex. It's making people feel like they're like less than, they're less than the other people that they're following on Facebook, because many people portray this perfect image. Many people only post the really cute pictures of their family and only want to post the really great things that happen. And nobody really talks about the bad things. And so what I found is that when I've started kind of sharing the fact that I'm not getting along with my kids and they're kind of driving me crazy. And, I shaved my upper lip with a razor or whatever it may be, people responded to that in a really, really positive way. And they just said, oh, it's so refreshing. So if there's a little bit of fear inside of you, then maybe you need to take a look at yourself and think about and look at what is holding you back from sharing those stories. And maybe try reading The Gifts of Imperfection. It really, really helped me out. So I want you to get your little sheet of paper out. And I want you to write 3 things down below your quote. The worst story is the one that's never told. Physical, number 1, physical. Number 2, emotional. And number 3, financial. So when we talk about using the leverage of the power of our story in terms of Beachbody, now I want you to also remember, I'm not talking about Beachbody 24/7. Nobody would follow me. People would unfollow me. So you want to keep that in balance. But when it comes to talking about Beachbody, these are the 3 areas that you're talking about. How has Beachbody impacted your life physically? Maybe you've lost 50 pounds. Maybe you found that drinking Shakeology has helped with your inflammation. It's helped clear up your skin. Maybe you found that you're sleeping better, right? So I just want you to, maybe not now, maybe tomorrow when you're doing some of your power hour or personal development, take some time and think about how it's physically changed your life. Emotionally, how's it emotionally impacted your life? Maybe it feels amazing knowing that you are helping other challengers in your group reach their goals. Maybe you have emotionally learned something about yourself through personal development. You can tie that back to Beachbody. And you can share that on Facebook. Okay, you can share those transformations, those physical and emotional transformations. And then the third one is financial. How has becoming a coach impacted your life financially? Maybe if you're just starting out, maybe you just say, oh my gosh, I'm paying for my Shakeology each month. And that's awesome. And you don't have to call it Shakeology, but just talking about the financial freedom that it's given you. And so I want you to think about those things. And just because you haven't had a huge transformation physically or emotionally or financially doesn't mean that you're not an effective coach. So don't ever, I know those little voices can get in our head and say, well, nobody's really gonna, I haven't lost 100 pounds. So, what's the big deal? It still matters because it's coming from you. So beneath that, if you are struggling with things to talk about as far as your story, I want you to realize that there is more than just one story. So there might be one big story. Like for me, my one big story is the fact that I struggled with postpartum depression. And I've shared that, and to this day, that has been the one post that has gotten the most likes, the most shares, the most comments ever, hands down. But there are other ways of sharing other parts of your story. And so I'm just going to throw a few things out there just to maybe jog your mind a little bit and maybe inspire you or get you thinking about some other things that, that you could be talking about. Have you ever struggled with self-confidence in any way, shape, or form? You can talk about how that makes you feel. Like, I wanted to go to this party and I didn't feel confident because my butt looked big in everything I wore, or I just didn't feel confident in what I was wearing, or whatever it may be. What's something that most people don't know about you? Have you experienced loss? Have you struggled with debt? What scares you? I talked about this call today, you guys. I talked about this call, and I just talked about how, honestly, one of my biggest fears is public speaking. It always has been. And as a high schooler, I was in plays, and I was terrified to get up on stage. So I joined Toastmasters so I could get more confidence speaking. And I faced my fears. And I think that, if you run away from it, you're never going to overcome it. So you need to face those fears. You need to talk about those fears. And then you find comfort in hearing from other people that, other people have those same fears as well. I'm just going to throw out a couple more and then we'll move on. Do you ever struggle as a parent, as a spouse? What secrets do you have? What makes you feel insecure? Do you have a hard time accepting compliments? So maybe that'll get the juices flowing, but if you are feeling these things, then chances are the people who are following you are feeling the exact same thing. And the more you can open up and the more you can share, the more relatable you're going to be, and the more people are going to trust you and want to come to you when it comes time to do a challenge group, because they're going to think, gosh, this person gets me. She's been through the same stuff that I have been through, and she understands. Or that's what my experience has been. So what else? The other thing I want to say too is every time you make a post, you need to ask yourself, am I being real? Am I sugarcoating this? Am I being authentic? Because if you're not, people can see through that, just like you can see through that when somebody else is making a post. You want to be relatable, just be you. And you know, all of these Beachbody products that we sell and use with our challengers, those things people can buy online themselves. So they are not buying those things. They are buying you as their coach. And so the more relatable you can be, the better off you're going to be. What else? So another thing I want you to quickly write down. Are your hands getting tired from writing all this down? So this is an awesome quote. Your trials are your triumphs. Your struggles, that's your story. Your struggles are your story. Your adversity is your advantage. And your mess is your message. So that really resonated with me. I think sometimes we feel insecure and we feel embarrassed, or we might feel ashamed, or we might feel nervous about sharing some of these things that feel a little bit scary. And that's where this next piece comes in. So personal development is going to help so much with that, guys. And if you are not doing personal development, I'm going to say it again, it's a game changer. That's when my life absolutely changed. Even if you can only squeeze in 10 minutes a day. I know you hear it from your coaches. I know you hear it all the time. If you are not doing it, make today be the day that you start, because it truly will change the way that you approach situations. It truly will change the way that you interact with people. So when I talk about being afraid to share my story, I'm sure many of you can relate. It feels scary to hit send. You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to puke. I feel nervous. And the main reason we feel that way is because we're afraid of how we're going to be perceived by other people. And so I heard an interesting statistic that I had to reread a couple of times, but 10% of the people that you come into contact with, whether it's in social media or just in direct face-to-face contact, have already made up their mind that they don't like you, that they're annoyed by you, that you irritate them, you bug them, okay? 10%. Why are we worrying about those people? Guys, seriously, why are we worrying about those people? They are never going to be our friends. They are never going to be our supporters. They are never going to be our challengers. Who cares what they think? And truly, like, let this sink in. This really, I had to marinate in this thought process for a minute. 10%. It's only 10%. That means that 90% of the people you come into contact or that follow you like you and want to hear what you have to say. So there are going to be haters. There are going to be people that say negative things about you. There are going to be people that judge you. But you have to realize that it's not about you. It's about them. It's not about you. It's about them. And so you can't waste any energy on those people. And so you need to put those people out of your mind and just tell your story and be okay with it. And yes, feel a little bit sick about it. But if you haven't done it yet, I promise you, it's therapy. It truly is. It's therapy to get those things out and to share. So the other piece of the puzzle that I wanted to share is that, you know, let's say like with my story with my postpartum depression, if I were to type out the entire story, nobody would ever read the whole entire thing. I would have to put it into a book. So you can't tell the whole story, but you need to, it's called breadcrumbing. Okay, so Hansel and Gretel, you're giving little bits and pieces of the story. So maybe one day I just make a comment about how I struggled with postpartum depression and, you know, exercise changed my life. Boom, done. That's going to leave people curious. Well, what does she mean? You know, I want to know more. You're not spilling the whole story all at once. And then maybe a couple months later, you share another little breadcrumb. And it just makes you more human. It makes you more interesting. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of like all over the place here. The last piece here, I said that the last time, but I really mean it this time. The last piece is you need to figure out who your audience is. And so when you are sharing your story or when you are promoting a challenge group, I oftentimes try to channel one person, and I think about who are the people who are following me. They're moms. Many of them are working. Many of them are running here and there with hockey and basketball and soccer and just trying to make it all work. And so I think of a friend of mine that I have, and I write my post directly to that person. And that makes it come across much more authentically. But you can really take some time with it. You know, where do your customers live? What do they fear? Where do they shop? How old are they? You know, all sorts of questions. And when you start to realize who your client is or who your customer is, your target audience, you're going to find that it's much easier to tell your story because you're just talking to that friend. You're just talking to that person. So I think that's all I have. I'm sorry I was kind of fragmented. Do we have any questions at all? I know I was really all over the place, but I was trying to rush through and make sure I got everything in.
You were not scattered. You were great. I have a quick question. Yes, I took away a lot too. Like Gina just said, I thought you were fabulous. How many do you have a set number of times you try to post each day, Rachel? And how often are you making like a hairy, scary, vulnerable, messier message kind of post? Or do you have any, like, am I making any sense? Do you have any rhyme or reason to how you go about things, like strategery, or you just kind of like roll with it?
I'm kind of roll with it, which probably isn't recommended, but that's just how I roll. You know, I guess I just think about, you know, when you're thinking about who your ideal, who your, you know, your customer is, who's following you. I mean, my person's going to be much different than, you know, somebody else's. So I try to think about when is this person online? When are they checking Facebook? They're probably not on at 2:00 in the afternoon. My person is not on at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday because they're probably still at work. So for me to post something about a challenge group or like a really vulnerable post, I'm probably not going to get a lot of people. So yeah, in my brain, I think about when I was working full time. When was I on? And so I was on in the morning, like right after I got the kids out the door and I had like a little bit of time. I was on over the lunch hour and then I was on right before bed. And so, but oftentimes those hairy, scary posts, yeah, sometimes it's just when I'm feeling it, you know, I just think about like, gosh, you know, or maybe I run into a person who kind of reminds me that, you know, maybe a challenger who's going through a tough time and it might inspire me to share that piece. But no, I don't have like a specific time. But I do try to post definitely 2 to 3 times a day, and or 3 to 4 times a day sometimes. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Awesome.
Other questions, guys? Don't be afraid. It does. I mean, it can be really related to anything.
I have a question, Rachel. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
When you do those hairy, scary posts, do you relate it to Beachbody all the time, or not all the time?
I don't think I've ever used the word Beachbody ever in any of my posts, ever. Okay. So I don't, but I talk in vague terms about how exercise has changed my life, but now I've only been doing this a year. That might change down the road, but I talk about how exercise has changed my life, how eating right has changed my life. And then I feel like, the people who are participating in my challenge groups or people who approach me, obviously Beachbody comes up, but I don't want to scare people off and I don't want to come across as salesy. So I really, really am very, very conservative when it comes to using any verbiage that, talks about any of the products or Beachbody.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Just on a side note too, Christy, I've been getting a little more comfortable now that I am doing this full time. Now that I've actually been able to leave my job and do this full time, I've gotten more comfortable talking about how I'm, I love having a job that allows me to stay home. And so but again, I'm speaking in vague terms. But then people have messaged me. So what is this? And then people get curious. If you throw it out there, then people know and might be afraid, or that, at least that's how I feel. And so then people come to me. So what is this program you're doing? Or what is this shake you're drinking? Or what is this job you're doing? Okay, did somebody else have a question? I thought somebody else was kind of.
I did.
Hey, Katie, what's up?
Speaking of messes, this is my Christmas boutique behind me.
I love it.
Anybody want any rehab furniture? I got lots for sale.
You've been doing a great job posting about that. I like it.
And posting how it was a really shitty experience.
That's right.
Oh, I love seeing your posts with your stuff. Has it been shitty?
Yeah. No, well, I guess I did glean a good post from it because I posted about how I went into this expecting I was going to sell everything, and it did not go as planned. And so I did post about that, like expectations, things don't turn out as you expect, and you got to roll with the punches. And I had a 15-minute pity party, and then I picked myself up by the bootstraps and went on. But anyway, my one struggle, it's not really a struggle, but I still, I'm always conscious about being narcissistic with multiple postings, because when I first got onto Facebook, X amount of years ago, I had this friend that was like, I just ate a ham sandwich, that kind of like post, like, who gives a shit? Pardon me. And I just thought, God, I can't stand people that are so I still, my posts are all down to earth, and like today, my second post of the day was that I rear-ended somebody on the way home from shopping today. So it's not all hearts and flowers for sure, but I still struggle with, I'm for sure trying to post twice a day, but I know 3 times would be better, 4 times would be better, but I still struggle with, like, I don't want people to see me as a narcissist. I don't know. Is that the right way? Do you know what I mean at all?
I do know what you mean. And I felt found. I'm kidding. No, but This is the thing. This is another thing I actually have written down, and so I'm glad that you brought this up. So whenever you make a post, don't just make a post to make a post. Before you click send, ask yourself, so what? So ask yourself that question. And if it's like so what? Yeah, I just made myself a ham sandwich. If you ask yourself, so what? Then it's probably not a relevant post, and people will be like, seriously, I don't care. But if you can say, no, there's some relevancy here. I made my ham sandwich, and but I used organic whole wheat bread. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. I mean, you need to make sure there's some relevancy, and you need to make sure that it somehow is connecting and engaging in some way. What's your favorite kind of ham? What kind of bread do you use? I don't know, if you can be at least a little bit more engaging. But then the fact that, we all feel uncomfortable for sure when we're posting a lot, and especially when we're first getting started, I think we have to just keep in mind that it's those 10% that we're letting, be worried. They can unfollow you. They can block you. And, you can't worry about those people. You really can't. And you can also ask yourself the question, would I care about this post? Would I stop and scroll and read this post? Would I find this entertaining? Would I find this relatable or useful? And if you say no, then yeah, maybe scrap it.
Okay.
Going from the opposite side of that, what if one day you have really absolutely nothing to say? Like, that may sound weird, because every day I work out, every day I eat pretty much healthy. I don't want to post about that every single day. It gets boring. People get bored. But there are some days where I really feel like I'm just like, well, I did nothing today besides go to work and work out. So what do you do on days like that? Do you go with nothing, or I don't know what to do on days like that? I mean, Friday, I don't think I posted a thing on my like page because I had nothing. And I don't know what to do on days like that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, right? Let's raise our hand if we go through dry spells. Honestly, last week was a really dry spell, and I think it's because I was freaking out because I had 24 people coming to my house for Thanksgiving. But I've talked to Katie we've had great conversations about this. I take photos of everything that I do. To the point that, my family's probably super, super annoyed with me. In fact, I know they are. But I take pictures of literally every single thing. I might not use them that day. I oftentimes don't use them that day. But on days like Friday for you, when I'm going, oh my gosh, I have nothing to post about, I scroll through my photos and I'm like, oh yeah, forgot about that, and I can post about that. Your people don't know that that didn't happen today. But I kind of keep just a stockpile of pictures. Jess, do you do that? Like a little, yeah. I mean, it's helpful, and because I don't even remember who suggested that. Somebody I found on a call suggested, like, just keep a stockpile of photos for those days when you're just like, ugh. I have nothing.
I agree, Rachel. I don't want to cut you off. Sorry.
No.
I agree. A stockpile of photos. And I also find those days, Gina, are days where I'll ask a question to get engagement on my page. A lot of times, say it's Friday, like nothing interesting happened on Friday. I did nothing. I could be like, my hubby and I need a new show to start tonight. What you got? And people love to have you interested in them, or what are your weekend plans? That sometimes those can be kind of hit or miss. But anything where you're asking an opinion of people love to give their opinion. So I think that could be, it doesn't have to relate to anything you did that day. It could be like, I asked a post about Christmas trees. Do you do real? Do you do fake? When do you get it? People love to talk about themselves. Show me your tree. you know, that kind of stuff. I find people love to talk about hair, shoes, that kind of stuff. So if you can give them a, like, which pairs of shoes should I get? This one or this one? You know, like, you may be kind of stretching, but it gets engagement and it doesn't have to relate to anything you did that day. I don't know if that helps. And I saw Bridget just said, Bridget was typing.
Yes.
Theme
Thank you.
workouts, Foodie Friday, etc. So you could just be like, you know, nothing happened on Friday, but you could be like, hey, folks, it's Foodie Friday. Check out this recipe. Would you try it? You know, I don't know if that helps, but sometimes stuff is just not really related to anything that happened, because a lot of my days, nothing happens, to be honest, except my kid throwing a tantrum or this or that, you know, like, so I don't know if that helps at all. But questions are always my go-to. And I think of them in the back of my mind, kind of like Rachel said, like, I'll take a picture of something random and I'll be like, oh yeah, remind myself later. I'm going to ask people about Christmas trees, because people want to talk about themselves.
Yeah, people definitely do. And like, today was like, things kind of kept coming, you know, and so I posted and I was like, all right, you know, and I actually had a couple other things that I wanted to post about, but I'm like, I can't be that person. So I write them down, and I've got like a little clip by my like, oh, I'll just ask these on those days where I'm having that day where I'm like, crap, nothing is there. I'll go to my little sheet, and I have a list of questions that I'm like, that I genuinely, honestly want to know what people think, but I'm like, oh, I'll save that for another day. So, you know, things had to have come up at the Thanksgiving dinner table. You know?
I'll do random polls, and I'll even call it that random poll: oatmeal or chocolate chip cookies. Totally random. And people, like, they love to talk about it. Yeah. And I save it when I don't want to be that person who posts 6 times in a day. Then I'll save them in the back of my mind for tomorrow. You know?
Yep. Any other questions, guys? I'm just looking to see who's on. Hi, guys.
Who's going to try to make a vulnerable post sometime this week? I will. I don't know what yet, but to share my story a little bit. So if you do it, don't be afraid to, you know, text a few coaches and be like, help me out, you know, and give me some love.
I'm glad you said that, because, you know, you might not be ready quite yet, but I'm sure hopefully after tonight you've got some ideas swirling in your head of some things that maybe you do want to share. And so I would recommend writing it out, writing your story. I mean, don't just write it out on Facebook and hit send. You want to practice it a little bit. So write it out, read it to yourself, read it to a friend, read it to your upline coach, get a couple opinions of, you know, things that maybe you should add or leave out. And then when it's fine tuned, you know, go ahead and post it.
I have something really quick. So I guess this would kind of fall under vulnerable. I posted this earlier tonight before I came on. My youngest son has a hearing loss, and so I just talk about that, but I talk about that more like on my personal page. So, you know, because I don't want it to, like, I just feel like that's where I connect with more people. Like, should that be something that I should be kind of migrating over to my like page, or should I just, I don't know, what are opinions on that? Because we've been going through a lot of stuff with that lately, with finding out the cause of it and just kind of dealing with the you know, now we're learning sign language and all of that stuff, but it feels weird to put it on my like page. And so that's where I really struggle, is finding stuff for my like page. And I'm pretty new, so I don't even have a lot of followers there yet anyways. But so what are thoughts on kind of like if it's not more about your weight loss journey or how you eat, doing those kind of posts on a like page?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for sure, especially if you have, when you're first getting started, the majority of your people are going to be on your personal page. And these are friends and family and people that you already really know and love and trust. And I would start there. That would be a great place to practice and just to kind of, share your story. And, I guess for me, I kind of keep my personal page more. I do definitely touch on fitness, and I throw a few things out there, but I really kind of keep my personal page more about my family and my friends and my, I do talk about, the fact that I work from home and things like that, but my like page is more fitness related. So, I think over time that will, for you, as your like page builds, you'll start to get a little more of a sense. I know I had a really hard time with that when I first started. Like, what do I put on this one and what do I put on that one? And still to this day, if I, like today, I posted for my next challenge group. I threw it on my Journey Fitness page, and then before bed tonight, I'll probably share it on my like page, or vice versa. But yeah, I think things like that. I don't know. Jess, what do you feel? Do you feel like you kind of keep it more personal on your personal page?
Yeah, I've really been sucking with my like page lately because I've been having a hard time coming up with enough content, and maybe that's a lazy excuse. It probably is, but just to fill both pages, it's overwhelming. So I say it's okay to stick to mostly your like page, your personal page at this point, especially with things that are personal.
Yeah.
And if you feel like that's part of your identity on your like page is, your family life, then you could migrate some of those posts over there. But if you don't feel like it is, like I know Amanda Dewey, for example, her personal page has a lot to do with her family, but her like page, she doesn't really focus much on her family. I mean, she has one, that's obvious, but she doesn't do a lot of kid posts and whatnot because it doesn't get much traffic. And those aren't her people. They're not like her friends, So you could kind of experiment and see with your insights too, if people are interested in your kiddos and stuff. And if you feel like that speaks, you got to make it feel like it's you, and it's authentic to you. And if it doesn't feel comfortable migrating that over there, then don't. I don't know. It's not really a good answer other than do what feels right to you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but don't feel pressure like you have to be posting about your kiddos a lot on your like page. But maybe that's what your audience on your like page wants. So I would just experiment with it and see.
Okay.
Any other questions, guys? This is great stuff, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Thanks so much, you guys.
Rachel, thank you so much for being on the call. It was really, really good. I agree, Bridget. Awesome call. And I just feel reignited with some confidence to go out there and be authentic. So thank you for sharing. And if anybody thinks of any questions, just shoot Rachel a message or post on her team page or my team page or, wherever. Sound good? Okay. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And get some rest, okay?
Yeah, you too. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Bye. Have a good night. Thank you so much.